À-bas-le-ciel.
Now, look, I'm going to keep it all the way real. I have said things on YouTube that directly cost me money, right?
Yeah,
where I lost Patreon support immediately because I kept it real and said what was real in my mind, said what I really believed, said what I really thought. So I can say that is a type of conflict of interest if you're a phony piece of shit who's not going to keep it real. Look, okay, again, I'll keep it real. This is partly about YouTube in general. This is partly about vegan activism in general, most of which has nothing to do with YouTube. And it's partly about Bite-Sized Vegan as a particular example. But I mean, there's definitely a sense in which I would probably be making more money if I was being nice with people I don't really respect, and people who've disrespected me too, by the way, like Ryan at Happy Healthy Vegan, right?
Yeah, you'd get promoted by them too, probably.
Good luck. Good luck. So, look, I mean, I'm not saying he's 100% wrong here. I think there's a subtle and pervasive way in which the profit motive through Patreon donations, does change people's behavior. I'm someone who's worked in the charity sector, the nonprofit sector myself. I'm someone who's been fascinated by it my whole life. I mean, I grew up in a family that fetishized the left-wing idea of revolution, that the only kind of political change was through revolution. And the charity sector is really like this sobering antidote to the revolutionary pretenses of the left wing. We say, hey, here's a way to change the world. Here's a way to make the world a place. Doesn't involve burning down buildings, doesn't involve murdering people, doesn't involve any stuff. And also doesn't involve like dissatisfaction getting worse and worse and worse, getting more and more pent up before the revolutions come. So I've been kind of fascinated by the charity sector my whole life as an alternative to that revolutionary left-wing view. But I don't know, why does he assume that people are fundamentally in denial about the fact that donations to charity include salaries? They include wages. They include cost of living. Why would they not?
But thousands and thousands of people volunteer their time every day, guys, while still working at a job and would never think of asking others for their hard-earned money.
I think it does run counter to human nature, to a deep yearning for a moral instinct that this isn't what charity should be. This isn't what politics should be. Even this isn't what war should be. This should be a more authentic, spontaneous, heartfelt, and amateur, volunteer-based engagement with these things. And 9 times out of 10, it's not.
À-bas-le-ciel.
So we got a few topics to discuss here in response to my old nemesis, Plant Eats. I believe Plant Eats is based in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I believe the collab is...
We just looked at his apartment tour. I think he's in Vancouver. Right?
Oh, fuck. Is he? Damn. Okay, well, forget it.
Forget
it. I'm not going to collab with him. Right, you're right.
$1 million apartment.
You're right. He did actually say in the subject line it was $1 million. And I said, yeah, I'm downtown Vancouver. Okay. If he's in Vancouver, forget it. We're probably never going to meet up with the guy, but whatever. So I got beef with Plant Eats going way back. We're going to talk about some interesting stuff here. There are really 2 topics. One, I sent him a bunch of comments on Twitter about the question of charities. These are brass tacks questions about political organization, money, charity work, etc. The fundamental premise of people donating money to a political cause being called into question by Plant Eats. And then the second, I mean, we don't really got to talk about it, but the question of education and credentials. What education and credentials does Mike the Vegan have? What education and credentials does Vegan Gains have? What education and credentials did Gary Yourofsky have? Or any of those vegan leaders? Sometimes those questions matter. What education and credentials does Donald Trump have? President of the United States. This is the era we live in, though, right? Keeping all the way real. I don't know. In Obama's whole career, I don't think his credentials helped him. Oh my God, he was a terrible president. Anyway, look, we're scraping. I mean, the last series of presidents in the United States have been so bad. People now look back on Bill Clinton like he was a great president. All right. Anyway, so not top of this video, but I think we can do both in this video because there's not that much to say. So look, we've had a lot of fan requests for my girlfriend to do more talking, but I don't really feel it's my role as a boyfriend to force her to talk if she doesn't have an opinion on something. Like, it's cool. I think doing this, instead of doing it as a monologue, me talking to my girlfriend, she can jump in at any one time. But
Yeah.
I think it would be way worse. It was like, come on, Melissa. Come on, get real. And also, like, this is not radio broadcasting. This is YouTube. So just get over it, people. She'll talk if she wants to talk, but I'm not gonna force her. All right. So the first topic I raised with him was his claim that donating to Patreon, that if you donate to support a YouTube personality or a YouTube vegan activist, if you donate to them on Patreon, that is a conflict of interest. So he said this in criticizing
Bite-sized vegan. He wants to take money out of the YouTube game. Yeah.
Why? Well, okay, look. So the first question I sent to him was, does he really know the meaning of the term conflict of interest? Right? So a conflict of interest, I mean, it's just used in newspapers very often, but maybe it's used so often that people forget what it really means. So if I have a conflict of interest, it means like I'm a judge in a court case, but because I have money invested in the stock market that will be influenced by the judgment in this court case, I am not doing my job. I'm being derelict in my duty.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but it's a little bit more specific than even just being biased. Because you can be biased without having a conflict of interest. You can be biased just because you're racist, because you're angry.
Yeah.
No, I mean, conflict of interest, it specifically means I'm going to be derelict in my duties. I'm not going to do my job, or I'm not going to enforce the rules because of some kind of investment, some kind of interest, some kind of benefit, some kind of other concern, which we have in government all the time. I mean, it's a real issue. But okay, if I ask you to donate on Patreon, either for straight up political vegan activism, or you name it, for me just coming on YouTube and talking about my life, whatever it is, there's a lot of harmless, silly stuff on YouTube, and there's more serious, roll up your sleeves political stuff. How would those donations, just ipso facto, just by that fact, just by the fact that I'm asking you to make donations, how would that be a conflict of interest? There have to be two separate interests in conflict. There has to be one duty I'm being derelict in because I want your donations. Now, look, I'm going to keep it all the way real. I have said things on YouTube that directly cost me money, right?
Yeah,
where I lost Patreon support immediately because I kept it real and said what was real in my mind, said what I really believed, said what I really thought. So I can say that is a type of conflict of interest if you're a phony piece of shit who's not going to keep it real, which I'm not, right? So one example I was reminded of recently, when I took a stand on the phony cure for cancer controversy. I took a stand supporting a natural vegan, my old nemesis, a natural vegan, but I took a stand saying she was right in her criticism of a not scientifically valid cure for cancer. It's actually a cure for cancer that is illegal in the United States, and people who want it cross the border to Mexico and pay for it there because it's actually, so this gives you a sense of where that stands. But my saying that, I had a bunch of people cancel their donations, and enough of them wrote to me saying that was why, that it was obvious. Yeah. So that taking a stand, that cost me money. It's an open question. So I have said insulting things towards Happy Healthy Vegan. I think they were deserved. I think they were entertaining. But I mean, there's definitely a sense in which I would probably be making more money if I was being nicey nice with people I don't really respect, and people who've disrespected me too, by the way, like Ryan at Happy Healthy Vegan, right?
Yeah, you'd get promoted by them too, probably.
Good luck. Good luck. So, look, I'm not saying he's 100% wrong here. I think there's a subtle and pervasive way in which the profit motive through Patreon donations, does change people's behavior on YouTube if you're not a man of principle, if you're not hung up on this idea I have about duty and honor and doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense. If somebody is easily swayed to not say one thing or another because of the donations, then yeah, that's a conflict of interest.
Right. But even if I was doing rap album reviews, if I give an album a negative review, I think that I would not really call that a conflict of interest.
Yeah, but also in the case of Bite-sized Vegan, I don't see how she could have something like her videos are not something that could be so controversial that she would lose money. I think her content is educational. It is through, she researches the videos like crazy. So I don't.
It's boring as hell to me. I have zero interest in her content, but I mean, it's all kind of aimed at that 101 level of information. But I don't know. I mean, if this does influence her behavior, look. Okay, again, I'll keep it real. This is partly about YouTube in general. This is partly about vegan activism in general, most of which has nothing to do with YouTube. And it's partly about Bite-Sized Vegan as a particular example and Plant Eats as a particular example, right? I do remember hearing an interview with Bite-Sized Emily where she talked about her own past education. She was one of those people who studied a mixed bag of things in university, including Sanskrit, which I can relate to. And then, later decided to go into medical sciences. And she dropped out of her medical science degree to do YouTube full time. And she just talked about, look, she feels that weight on her shoulders. She's got to make enough money out of this YouTube thing. So, there's some truth to that. But I think what you're talking about there is the profit motive, pure and simple. You're not talking about conflict of interest.
Yeah.
So, I'm still going to stick by this thing. I don't think that is conflict of interest, even though I still think it's really worth talking about in what ways does the profit motive change people's behavior on the internet, and in what ways does it change it in politics. Just recently I was saying Direct Action Everywhere, I think they're making these bullshit videos and uploading them about, so-called open rescue, and there's money involved. There's generating money from this kind of propaganda. So the closest thing, I've asked DXE for years to provide me with their actual budget, and they never have. Years and years, way before I met you. I've been asking them for that through active members, and they've never been willing to provide a budget. If you think their open rescue project is impressive, which many people do, I'm not impressed, but many people do, would you be more or less impressed when you know that their budget for that is approximately $200,000 Okay, so that's the projected budget for 2017. So their investigations budget, which I believe includes open rescue. Open rescue is the main showpiece of that. It's not worth my breaking down these categories. Okay, so $200,000. If that's what it takes to rescue 2 pigs and get into the headlines, appear on the Tonight Show. I'm sorry, I don't know if they appeared on the Tonight Show, but they got into the mainstream press. Okay, a lot of people see that, they click on the YouTube video, they don't pay attention, they think, oh wow, that's impressive. I'm not so easily impressed. But then you say, hey, guess what? The price tag for that was $200,000. I think we could get more bang for our buck at City Hall. So yeah, money matters, but it's not conflict of interest. It's really a question of the profit motive, pure and simple, which is worth philosophizing about, worth reflecting on. Whether it's with Direct Action Everywhere or Bite-Sized Vegan or probably Vegan Gains or something. Vegan Gains has got to pay that rent. He's got horses, man. He's got horses and dogs and bunny rabbits, man. So he's got to pay those bills. But anyway, Vegan Gains has said openly, by the way, if he's not making enough money from YouTube, he will go back to doing health and fitness coaching at a gym kind of thing. That kind of stuff. So personal trainer type stuff. So good for him. it's great to have signed a football and I think he probably could make a good living doing that, right? Next point, I do agree about transparency and accounting, but this is a huge problem with non-Patreon vegan charities too. For example, Direct Action Everywhere, PETA, etc.
Yes,
so in many cases, there's no pretense that the Patreon money is being spent on charitable activities.
Yeah, this was in response to him saying that Bite-Sized Vegan should keep the amount that she earns, that she's putting towards charity, and separate that from what is paying her salary. I remember that from his video.
Okay, so that was his more specific idea, was it? That she should account for how much of the money is going to salary and other types of expenditures.
Yeah.
Okay, look, where does your money go when you donate money to PETA or Direct Action Everywhere? Good luck finding out. And I'm someone who's worked in the charity sector, the nonprofit sector myself. I'm someone who's been fascinated by it my whole life. I grew up in a family that fetishized the left-wing idea of revolution, that the only kind of political change was through revolution. And the charity sector is really like this sobering antidote to the revolutionary pretenses of the left wing. We say, hey, here's a way to change the world. Here's a way to make the world a place. Doesn't involve burning down buildings. Doesn't involve murdering people. Doesn't involve any stuff. And also doesn't involve dissatisfaction getting worse and worse and worse, getting more and more pent up before the revolutions come, which is part of the classical Marxist view of the world, that things get worse and worse and worse, and then there's this collapse based on the analysis of France in 1789, primarily, by the way. A really crappy one-sided analysis of what happened in France in 1789, but nevertheless. Anyway, so I've been kind of fascinated by the charity sector my whole life as an alternative to that revolutionary left-wing view, where it's like, hey, look, here are all these people, and some of them are
voluntarily donating their money to people that need it.
Well, some of them are, and some of them are left-wing, and some of them are right-wing, and some of them are not. All kinds of different people trying to do all kinds of different positive things on a non-profit basis.
Yeah, I remember we just recently looked up a chart for some reason, how much money Americans donate per year, and it's pretty significant.
It's massive. Right. America is generally a low-tax, high-donation society, whereas Canada is a high-tax, low-donation society. It has broad brushstrokes and stereotypes. But yes, some cultures are more giving than others. Anyway, this comes up under a bunch of different headings, but I guess I'll just stay on topic for the moment. Uncharacteristically, I'll stay on topic. Right. So look, his complaint is about transparency. So if you donate money to Greenpeace, Direct Action, everything else, how much do you deserve to know about how much about what they do with the money, about where the money goes? I don't know. I think with most YouTubers, in my case, I've never had enough donations to really have to account for things like that. Like I currently get like $160 a month in donations. So it's like, guess what, guys? It goes into my pocket. Like, there's nothing else to say about that. Yeah, but for sure, if you're doing fundraisers for a particular project, or if you say, look, I want to go and attend a certain political conference, I can imagine you want to break down. This is how much you're going to spend on airplane tickets to go to the conference. This is how much you're going to spend on the hotel. Maybe you do have to give particular breakdowns. Yeah, sorry.
The one that wanted to open an animal sanctuary.
Oh God, yeah, right. Joe Vegan, right.
So
that was real.
Account for that and. Well, I guess he hasn't accounted for that.
And his project collapsed. That's big money and big risk and big responsibility. Sure. Yeah. Right. And my situation is zero money, zero risk. But look, the one exception I've got to mention here is I raised $6,500 in less than 48 hours for this court case. Mm-hmm. In that case, there's only one item on the list of expenditures. It's like, I went to the law firm. And that story is going to end the way it ends. I mean, I don't think that's going to really come to a happy ending. But sure, there's a question of, what do you spend these things on? Can you give an account of them? But I don't know, why does he assume that people are fundamentally in denial about the fact that donations to charity include salaries? They include wages. They include cost of living. Mm-hmm. Why would they not?
Yeah. It seems like he only should include the cost of living for bite-sized vegan.
Well, he only mentioned towards the end of the video, but he says at the end of the video, his thesis is that these people should have full-time jobs and just do charity part-time. Why? Why is that your assumption? Yeah. That's not the way the nonprofit sector works at all. When I was living in Cambodia, when I was living in Laos, I was part of the nonprofit charity sector. When I was involved with First Nations, the assumption was my career. I wasn't going to be a profiteer. I wasn't going to be a for-profit involved with Cree and Ojibwe or something. I was involved with and talking to people.
But your salary was paid by the charity, by donations.
When I'm in, so for example, when I was in Laos, right. And in all those, there's always the question of how much of your salary is actually donations, how much is government money, how much is taxpayers' money. That's the other thing in the nonprofit sector. Sure, I do think some of my salary in Laos was paid for by the taxpayers of Belgium in Europe. So, because we were partly a government-supported charity, but partly also donors like you were paying my salary, right? But if he had a philosophical statement, Plant Eats, if he began by saying that he believes in a philosophy that the only form of legitimate charity is part-time amateur charity, that would be different.
Yeah, but his main point is that Bite-Sized Vegan hasn't made a video in 7 months. Right. So he's saying, if you're getting these donations from Patreon, you should be putting out content and where are the videos? But, I made this comment to you, she has so much content and I don't know what else she could do at this point looking at the type of channel that she has. But I know that she has been going to different vegan festivals, and I know that she's doing speaking. She's touring.
Okay, currently. I didn't know that. But okay.
Well, I haven't looked into it, but when I was in the States back in March, there was a veg fest in Michigan, and she was one of the speakers.
So she was doing live. She's doing live gigs. She's appearing places in person. Okay, cool.
That's what I took from that. I haven't looked. I haven't looked into it, but I don't know if really she can do much more on YouTube, and I'm sure the people that are on Patreon know what she's doing, and they can, decide to stop donating to her if they don't want to support her anymore.
So I don't really see it as like just a criticism of Bite Size Vegan, of Emily, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, like, I guess it is disturbing to people, like the professionalization of the army. As soon as you have a class of people who are professional soldiers who are at any given time ready to make war, that's something very different from maybe the myth of a defensive war, that it's, you know, normal farmers and tax officials and merchants, you know, put down their tools and pick up weapons and run out to defend the nation. No. You have a standing army of professional killers who do nothing but, you know, the moral quality of a war is different if it's amateur or professional, and sometimes one side is amateur and the other side is professional. I mean, the United States bombing Laos, the United States is an incredibly professionalized army, right? And the other side, you had Laotian farmers trying to survive with all these bombs falling on them. You know, very unequal war. And believe it or not, Laos was not bombing the United States. There was wasn't the case that they were sending airplanes over to bomb Washington, D.C. at the same time. Not at all. That is what is called asymmetrical warfare, right? I think in the same sense, I mean, we have a little bit of a problem with professionalization of politicians. We looked up randomly. We're actually looking at a list of First Nations Indigenous politicians in the United States and Canada history. And one of them I clicked on, the guy, it said, you just get a synopsis of his career. He started off as a longshoreman. He started off working on the steamboats as a steamboat worker.
In West Virginia, right?
Right, loading cargo on and off of a steamboat in West Virginia. And then he eventually was elected to the Senate. And I said, damn, you know, we don't have that kind of upward mobility in today's politics. We don't have. When was the last time you heard about? Yes,
Congressman. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Anyway, I'm just saying, you know, we don't have that kind of upward mobility in our society at the moment. It's not common to hear about people becoming politicians out of that kind of really low-level, blue-collar, you know, work. You know, maybe one in a million. You know, maybe it happens once in a long while. Anyway, so the idea of a politician as someone amateur, of the people, in the people. So this is something slipping away. Okay, maybe on a deeper level, what he cherishes, without examining it, is the idea that YouTube activists and political activists generally are amateurs, that they have a day job. They're a waiter or a waitress, and then in their spare time, they just do politics. In their spare time, they do charity work, and they shouldn't be doing a professional civil service. But let me tell you, I mean, that's not planet Earth. That's not the world we live on. As soon as you go, I mean, it's a small but significant sum. She's getting $3,000 a month, I believe, in donations. That is enough, just barely enough, for you to quit your day job if you're a waitress or something, and try to do this kind of nonprofit charity work full time. So if he presented that as his philosophy first and foremost, I would sympathize with his position more. As it is, I don't sympathize with it at all. You know, if he said, like, he has some kind of Athenian democratic philosophy that these people should not be professional politicians, they should not be professional activists, they should not be NGO, nonprofit, charity sector employees, they should have a day job and then just do this out of civic virtue in their spare time. But I don't think anyone in his audience believes that. I think that's a very rare view of the world in the 21st century. Maybe it shouldn't be. Maybe those are ancient virtues worth thinking about. But then, I mean, just think about something as simple as going to a conference, going to a speaking engagement. If you've got a day job, that's very, very hard to do. If you've got a day job,
not in your city, you know.
If you've got a day job and kids, you know, you're really pinned down. Your ability to just do something as simple as that. All right, there's a legitimate open question, Plant Eats, as to whether or not there's a gap between expectations and reality in other cases. When you donate to Direct Action Everywhere, for example, are you comfortable with the fact that you're paying people salaries? If not, what did you imagine? So again, we were just looking at the budget, the very informal, unofficial budget. The only thing resembling a budget from Direct Action Everywhere is actually a blog post, and it's not a full budget. It doesn't give you. They get real vague. They get real defensive about the issue of paying people salaries. I talked to someone who asked Wayne about this. So Wayne is the dictator. Wayne Seong is the self-appointed dictator for life of Direct Action Everywhere. And if you ask him about salaries, he does not want to talk about it face to face. So it is big money. So you get some really vague categories here. $57,000 in direct expenditures, $24,000 in fellowship support. So one of those or both of those are salaries, are money going into people's pockets that they use to buy gasoline, food, pay rent, And this is my point. If there's nothing shameful about that, why are they ashamed of it? Why not straight up say, we paid 12 employees $20,000 a year each? Like, these must be really low salaries. I don't know. I don't know what they're getting paid. They're getting paid something. I mean, they're getting paid like fellowship support. I'm going to support your fellowship by giving you $20,000.
Yeah.
They're supporting someone's fellowship with money. That's not a wage. That's not a salary. Think about that. And again, direct expenditures. What does that really mean? So it's an interesting thing. Obviously, Plant Eats on this issue, there is a big audience that agrees with them. There are many, many people, including people inside Direct Action everywhere, who are not comfortable with the fundamental concept of collecting donations and spending those donations on salaries. Now, in a sense, I don't get it. In a sense, I do. I mean, if you donate money to PETA, where do you think the money's going? One of the biggest jokes, is the Academy in the United States.
For the Academy Awards?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, you guessed it. It's look up their Form 990. They are a charity. Charity. The Academy Awards Foundation. I think it's just called the Academy Foundation, their legal name. And, they have to give, like, the list of the salaries for the 10 most highly paid people in their organization and stuff. God damn. I mean, to call this a charity. And, the money poured in by the government, the taxpayer support. Whoa, screw you, taxpayer. American taxpayers, do you realize your taxpayers' dollars are going to give George Clooney a 5-star hotel and like a 5-star dinner he doesn't need? George Clooney has enough without taxpayers. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So, it does matter. I do think that, if you're whatever charity you're running, you need to have a statement of principle in your constitution. Like, none of our employees will earn more than $100,000 a year. Or maybe, I don't know. It depends what kind of charity you do. Like PCRM, if some of your employees are surgeons, maybe you have to say, look, none of our employees are going to make more than $200,000 a year. But if you want someone who's a full-time surgeon to stop working as a surgeon and come and do, activism for you and veganism, maybe you do have to pay them like $150,000, $175,000. Maybe you have to pay a really high salary. I don't know. But, you can have transparency about salaries. When I was in the city of Toronto, from my perspective, there was a political bombshell, but Canadians just don't care. Canadians are lacking in those ancient Greek civic virtues. We had a law passed that every employee of the city government who earned more than $100,000 a year, it had to be stated publicly what their salary was. Oh my God, the gravy train that was revealed. It was nightmare-inducing. And I knew a lot of those guys from City Hall. Like, no, I didn't know them deeply personally. It was like, that piece of crap, that guy who had like a crappy job as an advocate for a waterfront housing development. So, like, what do you even do? You just promote this city project, earning huge sums of money, taxpayers' money. It's scary. So there's reason for discomfort. There's good reason for transparency. But his fundamental approach here is to try to claim, like, sorry, what's her name? Bite-sized vegan. That bite-sized vegan is not entitled to a wage when she's openly saying donate money so she can have a wage. So this can be her full-time job.
She can be a full-time activist.
So in that fundamental sense, I think I do disagree with him. All right. It makes absolutely zero sense for you to say, Plant Eats, that she ought to separate her charity from her income. When I lived in Cambodia and Laos, working for a charity was my income. That's the whole charity sector. Donations pay wages. 99% of donors know this. I continue. Donations made to Go Vegan World. Oh, another interesting and strange example. So we could pop in video from Go Vegan World. I was showing you video of Go Vegan World, and this is big money. This is a big money charity. I want to make an open call right now. If anyone in the audience...
Have you been able to find their budget?
Never!
Yeah.
I can't say. I've been looking for like 1 year for their budget.
Right.
More than 6 months. I've been looking for their budget. I can't find anywhere on the internet from any European agency or what have you. Anybody who's watching this, if you have a connect to get the financial reports, I want to learn from their success. I want to learn from their failure. I want to learn from what they're doing. But Go Vegan World, that is big money. That is a lot of money. And I say here, donations to Go Vegan World pay for 1, salaries, 2, illustrations by advertising agencies, and 3, advertising rates. The direct rental cost to put a poster in a public place. How can you say that donors are unsuspecting about such basic facts? This is the reality of the world of nonprofit charities. When people donate money to a church, do they know where the money goes? I think that's a complex question. When people donate specifically to an international missionary church, do they know where it goes? If you donate money in Florida and it's actually paying for a fat white man in Thailand to live on the beach drinking cocktails in the name of preaching Jesus Christ to Theravada Buddhists in Thailand, do you know where the money goes? Trust me, living in Southeast Asia, Cambodia, Thailand, this was like a monthly scandal. The reality of Christian charities, missionary charities in Southeast Asia. Because, you may be paying for someone to be on permanent vacation, Sure, those are pretty complex. But these examples, these are pretty transparent. I'd like to know the numbers for Go Vegan World. I'm not saying they're a scam. I don't think that at all. I don't think they're a scam. I think they're a success story. But it's amazing to me that they managed to leverage the little bit of legitimacy they had as a sanctuary. They started as Eden Farm Sanctuary in Ireland. They had a little bit of legitimacy and public profile from that. They managed to leverage that into what looks like a multi-million-dollar ad campaign.
Really did look for them one time. We looked for
I've
the
been looking.
And
I've been looking. Yeah. I couldn't find any of that. So, when I used the different European search. But anyway, anyone who's got info on that, hook me up. All right. So you say, quote, they never have to report how they spent donated money. Sorry. So
they have to report.
Right. The point is here, he said that real charities, like the ones he provides links to, have to report how they spent donated money. It's the law. Whereas someone like myself or Bite Size Vegan, well, this is really kind of misleading. And I say to him, look, I think you're a phony. I think you're faking here, plant eats. I don't think you've ever actually done this kind of political science research. I don't think you've ever sat down and read U.S. Form 990. You've ever actually read the reports charities make. We just talked about this with Direct Action Everywhere. You can just be vague. It's very easy to be non-transparent. It's very easy to mask what it is you're doing. PETA, most of the expenditures are just consultancy. So many $1 million. And you don't even know. What is it for? What was the consultancy for? So just by creating a separate company, I don't want to get myself in trouble, but to my knowledge, this was one of the problems with the National Geographic Society. National Geographic Society, they had both a charity and a company, right? Well, that's real convenient because you can just say, oh yeah, we sent so many million to this company. For what? Well, now the company doesn't have to report. So I paid so much to this consultancy firm. I paid. That's all you got. So if the charity doesn't make a huge effort to really be honest with its donors, you can just get very vague categories. We were just talking about fellowship support. What is fellowship support? Where is your money going? What does that really mean? Or in PETA's case, consultancy and what have you. So again, I think he's talking out of his hat here. He just does not know what he's talking about. He has never made this kind of effort. And look, here's the other thing. Impact and what's called absorption capacity. I now make like $160 on Patreon. If you donate $100 to me, it is going to make a difference. No, but let's keep it all real. Right now, I have zero capacity to do anything in vegan activism. I may do a fundraiser to publish my children's storybook when, maybe try to promote that and publish this kind of thing. But yes, if someone donated $1,000, $1,000 is not very much money if you're someone who makes, they could then say to me, hey, look, I want you to attend this conference. I want you to give a lecture at this event. And I would say back, great. That's right. Oh, okay. I mean, within the next 6 months, I got time on my calendar. I do. So if they said, obviously I got to coordinate with other things. But if they said, hey, there's this vegan event in Florida, I think I want you to go there and deliver this message. I want you to go and debate dog castration isn't vegan or something. I want you to debate that killing cockroaches is okay for vegans, whatever the issue is they want me to speak on. You can donate $1,000 to me and have a huge, decisive influence on me and what I do, and you're going to have real-world outcomes, whatever those are. Whether it's speaking at this conference, what is it you want? What's the outcome you want, right? That's, direct impact and absorption capacity. You donate $1,000 to PETA, who the fuck are you? Your opinion doesn't count for shit. You're not going to influence what PETA does in any way. It's going to disappear into a multi-million-dollar budget. And it's not transparent. It's not. PETA are legally compliant. They comply with the legal obligations to be transparent and nothing more. If you don't believe me, go ahead and do the reading. Anyone can download their U.S. Form 990 from the internet, which is legally required for them, basically. You can download it and try to figure out yourself where your money goes with them. So no, there's a big difference there, and I think that actually favors people like me and Bite Size Emily. I think if you give Bite Size Emily $1,000, you can probably have an email back and forth with her and let her know what you want. You know what I mean? Why you donated or what your expectation, what your hopes are. And she might write back to you saying, look, I'm sorry, I can't do it. With Patreon, you can cancel your pledge before you've paid. It's not really, she might say, look, I'm sorry, it's not, but I think donating $1,000 to Bite Size Emily is probably going to be way more rewarding and impactful and have way more directly measurable outcomes than donating $1,000 to PETA. And me, even more so. And I'd be honest that way too. If someone was donating $1,000, but it was something I couldn't do or something I wouldn't do, I just say, look, I'm sorry, but I can give you the money back. This is what you're expecting, but that's not in the cards for me. So no, I mean, this kind of small YouTuber activism, you can change people's lives, and in some ways, you can change the world. And it's pretty hard to convince yourself donating to big agencies like that is gonna change the world. And that, what? I mean, I wonder that about Go Vegan World too, because if I had the money to donate, I'd probably prefer to just directly myself do what they're doing, directly do an ad campaign. Why would I donate it to that agency? So that also becomes an issue, right? At what point do you pass the point of diminishing returns? Well, I've got $1 million to donate. Why would I give that to this charity instead of just directly myself doing vegan activism with that $1 million? That's a real question for big donors. I think that's a really meaningful question.
Yeah. So the other issue was transparency about credentials and education.
Ew, right. Yeah. So we have new hot off the press. We have Plant Eats denigrating Mike the vegan, whom I've denigrated myself. Mike got back to me, right? So Mike replied to my video criticizing him, and he basically admitted I was right. Oh, look at this. I'm slouching down so much. Melissa's the tall one for a change. Anyway, yeah, I did have a little bit of a conversation with him via Facebook. So what credentials does Donald Trump have? What credentials does Vegan Gains have? What role do credentials play in this year game? Most of my experience with this, is really negative. I don't go around expecting people to.
Well, this is something that you called out freely for not having any credentials,
and she lied about it.
Yeah,
she was caught lying.
Right.
Yeah, no.
Sure, you can sympathize with Plant Eats.
Sure. No, it's significant, and I think my argument about Freely on that was a little bit more nuanced. Among the things I said, I thought her total lack of sympathy for the people she was giving advice to reflected a lack of any kind of clinical experience. Like she doesn't know what it's like to be coaching someone and giving them advice when they're struggling with recovering from an injury, just all the real world experience. Yeah, but her lack of education, I thought, was impacting what she was saying in many different ways. And some of that could come out of hands-on experience, if you like, informal education rather than formal credentials. Mm-hmm. But no, sure, the fact that she lied about having a formal credential, that mattered, of course. Yeah. And she also said things like she didn't need any credentials. Her body was her only credentials. The results she got, her abdomen, the fact that she can take photographs of her, that was the only credentials she needed, and so on. So that was definitely a debate I engaged in, and I think I won. I think I destroyed the other side of that long term with Freely and Durian Rider over the significance of credentials, and that is in the context of giving diet and weight loss and health advice. And I was also able to provide examples where Freely was 100% scientifically wrong. Garlic does not contain a neurotoxin. Her claim that garlic is not safe for human consumption is ridiculous. Her philosophy of the mono-meal and what is and what isn't a true food. That you shouldn't eat parsley. This is her belief.
Parsley.
Yeah, you don't know this?
No.
Parsley's healthy, in case you hadn't heard. Are you shocked to hear parsley's healthy? Mm-hmm. Not according to Freely. Dr. Freely claims and argues at length that a food like parsley cannot be eaten as a mono-meal. Therefore, it's not a true food. Therefore, it's insanity. So yeah, that is the kind of pseudoscientific internet factoid view of the world that would be challenged if she got, a formal degree in hope, in any kind of nutritional science, dietetics.
Plant Eats mentions that Mike the Vegan's videos can even be dry because of all the scientific studies that he includes.
Right.
He's not just making baseless claims like Freely was. So
right, and I feel he was 100% wrong in the video I criticized him on. I criticized him on his health claims about marijuana, and to me that just showed that someone can use a whole stack of peer-reviewed articles and still be 100% wrong,
right.
Not 50% wrong, 100% wrong.
Yeah.
So that happens once in a while. Vegan Gains screws up that way. I've seen a couple of things where Vegan Gains kind of drop the ball, but he's an amateur who's doing serious work on peer reviewers. But look, not all forms of expertise are credentialed in the 21st century. I still really am an expert on Buddhism, right? Now, I can prove that in a lot of different ways. Like, hey, that one lecture I gave at Oxford University, England, at the invitation of Professor Emeritus Richard Gombrich, go read the lecture. The PDF's on the internet. You know what I mean? Like, you can decide for yourself whether or not that lecture proves that I have credentials experience. I have real expertise and knowledge in Buddhism. There are two sides to this. One, there's whether or not someone has real expertise. Expertise is something separate from credentials. Come back to credentials. Does someone have expertise? And two, is someone going to be honest with you? So you remember the sequel to Cowspiracy. I forget what it was called.
What the Health.
Okay, What the Health. These are both documentary films, Cowspiracy and What the Health. There's a documentary called What the Health, and in it, he goes and talks to a guy who's a legitimate expert in diabetes, in the science and prevention of diabetes, but he's not being honest with you. And the guy's so wound up and uncomfortable. And, at one point, the guy doing the interview, he just says, yeah, but what about the link to dairy? Like, he barely gets that out. The guy's like standing up in his chair saying, I'm not going to talk about diet. Okay, so that's someone who's an expert. He has expertise, but he's not going to be honest with you. In Buddhism, it's a huge issue. Can I name people who are greater experts than I am in Buddhism? Easily. I could sit here now and name 10, 20 people who are greater experts. But will they be honest with you? Will they tell you the truth about the history of slavery in Thailand? No. Will they tell you the honest truth about the history of gender, like the status of women in Buddhism in Sri Lanka or Thailand? Anyway, no. Like, these aren't even that controversial. Will they tell you the truth about meditation in Buddhism? Never. Like, not if you torture them on the rack. They won't even be honest with you about what they do know, and they'll be much more dishonest about what they don't know. So my expertise in Buddhism are of extraordinary value for that reason. There's the expertise, and then the different, ultimately political components of why someone will be honest or dishonest. Because I think that guy in What the Health, the diabetes expert, I think he's being dishonest with you for, I think, what we could just call political reasons.
Yeah.
I think that's a simple way to summarize it. So that's, I think, for me, that's the core of the issue, is having real expertise and being unbiased in that sense in terms of your motivation, being, really being committed, telling the truth about the subject. Yeah. Now, in Buddhism, I never got a PhD. And even while we've been together, I've been applying to and talking to universities about maybe getting a PhD in Buddhism. It's still a possibility for me. It's not that appealing, but it's a whole long story. So I'm not credentialed that way, but nevertheless, I have expertise that are really worth something. When you're looking at people who don't have a PhD or some other obvious credential like that, I think you can do the due diligence, D-U-E, do the due diligence. Sorry, a bit of an idiom in English. You can do the due diligence to figure out whether or not they have expertise. And in my case, I feel anyone who can use Google can see really easily just where I've lived, the Buddhist monks I've met face-to-face, the publications I've got. It's actually, and just even my blog entries, let alone my peer-reviewed articles. You can really easily figure out, this guy put in the time. Wow, this guy studied the languages. This guy, this guy has articles and writing that this really shows many, many years of engagement with this. Where, at a minimum, he has an informed opinion. Doesn't mean I'm right. Being wrong is a wonderful and rewarding part of human life on Earth. Being wrong is the spice of life, as far as I'm concerned. I love being wrong. Anytime I'm wrong, it means I'm learning something. You know what I mean? So it's not being wrong. It's noticing that I'm wrong. That's the spice of life, is finding out that you were wrong, because then you really know you're learning something, right? So I don't know, in different fields, I think there are different ways where you can recognize someone's expertise without there having been formally credentialed. You know, what's the road forward for veganism? I have a diploma in political science. Does anyone respect my views on vegan politics more because I have a formal credential and education in politics? In my opinion on vegan politics, does it count more because I have a degree in political science? Yes or no? I think we both know the answer is no. I think that's part of the tragedy of the commons in the 21st century. That's the tragedy of mainstream politics. Whose opinion matters on politics? And, you know, a lot of people have irrelevant degrees. A lot of people have irrelevant degrees that get them in political power. They have a background as a lawyer or something. They have a background in the, you know, Bureau of Commerce and Trade or something. There are a lot of things that seem to elevate your political status. But by the same token, whereby nobody cares that I have a degree in political science and thus gives more weight to my views in politics, by the same token, I kind of feel like it's a lot more of a mixed bag in terms of what is the importance of your university degree in the future of the vegan movement. You know. All right, it's good. 45-minute conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as it turns out, Mike the Vegan is getting a master's in public health.
Yeah.
I just thought it was funny that at the end of the video,
right,
Plant Eats says, "Oh,
right.
yeah, so he has some undergraduate degree in science and he's getting a master's in public health."
Right.
So.
Right, and that doesn't qualify him to have an opinion on whether or not smoking marijuana causes brain damage. It doesn't. But, you know, it also doesn't mean he's going to be wrong about that.
Yeah.
I've used the example. I mean, look, with the health claims, obviously, there's more risk, there's more danger. You could actually hurt someone's health by giving bad advice. You know, there are reasons to be really extra reticent if you don't have a robust scientific background in making health claims about the health sciences. However, I've used the example on this channel many times of saying, look, I know as a fact that you should not huff glue.
Yeah.
I'm 100% against glue huffing. If you ask me to sit you down and talk you through the science of how does huffing glue destroy your brain tissue, I can't do it. I cannot talk you through the chemistry or the biochemistry or the etiology of how exactly huffing glue is bad for you. If someone says to me that they really believe, hey, the glue fumes, they're invisible.
But
they don't
in
believe
response to Mike the Vegan's video about marijuana, you made a 20-minute video talking with studies and
it's all peer-reviewed sources, right?
Right, exactly. So would you say that you aren't qualified? You know, that you don't have this expertise?
Right.
You're nevertheless you're putting this information out on.
Well, I think that's also I think that's also a really interesting, you know, subtle and slippery element of this. Some subjects really do require those kinds of qualifications and some don't. Like, I feel I can say, hey, quit huffing glue. I feel qualified to say that. I think that's so simple, even though I don't have the scientific background to say that, right? Mm-hmm. And then on the other hand, all the time I see people making claims about Buddhism, which you might think would be easy to do. And I say, no, they're making mistakes equivalent to mixing up Santa Claus with Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. You know, like they're mixing different literary and mythological sources from different periods of time on different continents. Like, no, that's from Japan in the 18th century, not from India in the 5th century BC. You know, like, they're really making errors like that. So something like that, which might seem easy for an amateur to dabble in, very often it's like, no, you really lack the expertise to talk about what you're talking about. So that's my experience in life. It's very unpredictable. It's very hard to tell when we're treading into something where expertise matters. I think on a very deep level in Western culture, we don't want to believe in a professional army. We don't want to believe in professional killers. We want to believe in the virtue of the volunteer. I think we don't want to believe in the professionalization of political organizers, that these should be spontaneous uprisings. Charity should be a spontaneous outpouring of generosity. And it's not. These people have the dead, gray soul of a bureaucrat. They put on a suit and tie, they take your money, and they go and hand out sacks of rice to starving people. But if that's how you want, if you want to do that, that was part of my job in Laos. We literally handed sacks of rice to starving people. Mm-hmm. You know, if that's what you want to do, you got to pay us, and you got to pay us enough that we can go on vacation on a beach in Thailand and all the rest of it, and we'll go over there and hand out those sacks of rice. I mean, I think it does run counter to human nature, to a deep yearning for a moral instinct that this isn't what charity should be, this isn't what politics should be, even this isn't what war should be. This should be a more authentic, spontaneous, heartfelt, and amateur, volunteer-based engagement with these things. And 9 times out of 10, it's not. The link to my Patreon is below this channel. Donate now!
À-bas-le-ciel.